Hi, this is Ariana Ball, and my group and I will be focusing on the topic of solitary confinement, balancing safety and sanity in America's toughest prisons. The part that I'll be focusing on is what type of safety measures and benefits that solitary confinement brings in. It establishes prison safety. The sole purpose of solitary confinement in prisons is to restrict inmates from harming other inmates. So therefore, if a prisoner is threatening and posing danger to another inmate or staff, then solitary confinement is used as a safety measure to keep that dangerous inmate from harming others. Solitary confinement is also an effective way for the guards to control the negative behavior that could arise in a prison. So it creates a sense of fear in prisoners, which influence them to have discipline and not seek to start trouble with other inmates to prevent them from being thrown into solitary confinement for their bad behavior. Also, it can help reform an inmate. The prior goal was a way to rehabilitate or reform an inmate by allowing an inmate to engage with their inner self, thoughts, and really reflect about the crime they committed. Although that sounds like an effective way, oftentimes prisoners are kept in solitary confinement for way too long, which has a negative impact on their mental health instead of trying to rehabilitate them. So that's where the balancing safety and sanity plays a role into solitary confinement.
Hello, my name is Dennis, and I'm going to be talking about the effects it has on inmates that go through solitary confinement. So, what we have here is a image of how a typical solitary confinement cell looks like. As you can see, there's really nothing much going on. I mean, there's a little tiny window, but you can hardly ever see out of it, and not much sunlight ever gets through it. With that, the environment that these inmates are put in, it can cause a lot of severe psychological effects such as depression and hopelessness due to being all alone for a long period of time. Like there were many articles that I read where it was explaining about how some inmates spend their time in confinement for a year, others a couple of years, and others even decades. So, with that long period of time being spent alone, many inmates would attempt to commit suicide, which is why the highest rates of suicide and self harm occurs in solitary confinement units. Other things that inmates might experience from this is anxiety attacks, and they may lose their sanity and grip on reality. Another thing that happens, which is very tragic, not many people often see it, is because this is something that doesn't happen right away. It develops over time from being alone. But what basically happens is that uh, they are basically living in a whole new world. They're all by themselves. There are no longer any meaningful social engagements with others. They don't get to experience things such as going outside, feeling fresh air, hearing different sounds like birds chirping, and just stuff like that. And for that, inmates will start to structure their new world around just being alone. Um, Obviously, with that, social skills start to depreciate, and studies have shown that solitary confinement inmates begin to feel uncomfortable when they see other people. All they want and know now is being by themselves, which is what causes many inmates to become insane, or when they are released back into society, they don't know what to do anymore. Um, Other things such as inmates that have mentally health issues, uh, those inmates oftentimes they are thrown right away in solitary confinement due to their illness and just the I guess the danger that they impose onto the general population, which is the reason why uh, they are isolated. But doing this is dangerous because it actually worsens their condition. We see the effects that has on an inmate that doesn't deal with any mental health issues and how dramatically it changes them. And now just imagining a inmate that already is dealing with mental health issues, how that will impact them even more.
We are all living through a global pandemic and it can be challenging to deal with. Yet the lives of others should always be first. Medical isolation is a first step, which is why inmates and correctional officers can benefit from utilizing solitary confinement cells, as they can be used as a safety precaution and protect the health of everyone. If we continue to be careless and not isolate inmates in some way, everyone will be at risk and the number of cases and deaths will grow. Some inmates will be hesitant in the beginning to report symptoms because solitary confinement is primarily used as a form of punishment and can be prolonged. However, inmates need to be informed that medical isolation is different and is only temporary. So during this difficult time, solitary confinement should be used as a safety precaution to ensure that the lives of others are not in danger, therefore reducing the spread of the virus.
Hello, my name is John Navarro, and I will be covering solitary confinement and how these prisons fail to maintain safety and sanity. So to start it all off, solitary confinement has many risk factors to it. Often the prisoners who are locked away for months or years with barely any human interaction gain mental health issues like anxiety, depression. They could be very aggressive. Even the study has shown from an article by Erica Good back in 2012 explains that solitary confinement actually made their prisoners behave more violently compared to prisons who focus on more rehabilitation programs. The article by Good also explains the many ways these prisons fail to maintain safety. The prisoners who are in these cells for months or years, the very cells that they are put in are in horrible conditions. They have excremented walls. They have barely any light going into the cell. And they even have filthy food trays. So finally, moving on to my final article. It is by Raymond Skiba back in 2018. And I have a direct quote from the article. And as it says, solitary confinement does not achieve its intended objectives and may even worsen the problems it was designed to solve. So in conclusion, the toughest prisons mainly focus on cruel punishment. They do not focus on rehabilitation of the prisoners, which results in many of the prisoners going without treatment to their mental issues, which can affect their future when their possibility of re-entering society. They will not know how to function, and they will have the mental issue that they never got treated and may even end up back into prison.